Two big developments in the next few hours will define what transpires in the Middle East and the rest of the world. One, Iran's deadline for American companies has ended, and after attacks on energy infrastructure, Iran could now strike American tech firms. Is the US prepared? And number two, in just a few hours from now, Donald Trump is set to address the United States. But what really could he reveal in his address? Tonight on Newshour Agenda, we speak to a man who one could say is quite close to Trump's inner circle. He's the former chief of staff of the United States National Security Council and could give us an insight into what we can expect in Donald Trump's big address tomorrow. Thank you very much, Mr. Fleitz, for joining us on the broadcast. Donald Trump has been talking about Strait of Hormuz, and those statements continuously keep changing. He first said you have 48 hours to open Hormuz. He then said you have till 6th April, and finally, he says can leave without opening Hormuz. But in the latest post, Donald Trump claims Iran wants a ceasefire. Once again brings up the Hormuz issue and says he will consider this only if Hormuz is open and free. Now, what does that say about the strategic messaging of Donald Trump and the United States?
Well, this is a rapidly moving situation. In 12 hours, 9 p.m. Washington time, President Trump is going to give a major address to the nation. I will be at the White House for that statement. And I believe he's going to announce an end to major combat operations, and we'll move to a new phase with a major naval force in the Arabian Sea, and we'll conduct military operations by air against Iran if we have to. I think Trump's going to declare victory in this war because he has achieved his major objectives against the nuclear program, the missile program. He's substantially degraded Iran's military. So I think we're moving to a new phase. It's going to be good for global security and for the global economy.
All right, what you're saying is really big. You're saying you believe that Donald Trump could announce victory. Now, let me also accommodate the other developments, Mr. Fleitz. And this is Pete Hegseth, who said that the new regime, since according to him a regime change has occurred, should be wiser and they should be ready to make a deal with Donald Trump because Donald Trump is ready. But on the other hand, a few days back, Mr. Marco Rubio said that unless US destroys the current regime's military capabilities, it will remain an adversary. Why do you think there is this contradiction between these two top officials?
I have a difference with the administration on the word regime. I don't think the actual regime has changed. I think there's a different set of leaders running the government, but they're remnants of the old regime. What has to happen is that the Iranian people have to rise up and throw out this regime and claim their freedom. This is a radical Islamist terrorist government. They are members of a government that were brought in by Supreme Leader Khamenei. They're a threat to global security. That ultimately should be the goal of the United States.
All right. So you agree that there's been no regime change. But, you know, there's a lot of back and forth when it comes to Donald Trump's statements. He has said that US has been able to deliver total obliteration to Iran and that US will not have to be there much longer. He's also talking about the regime when he says that there's no strength literally left for them to, act when it comes to Strait of Hormuz. But given your experience as the chief of staff of the national security, how realistic is this assessment that Iran cannot do much about the Strait of Hormuz? Remember that it has remained closed for over a month.
Well, I would say the strait has not actually been closed. It has been restricted. Iran is allowing a small number of ships to go through that pay huge tolls to Iran, and that's unacceptable. The number of missiles fired at ships in the strait is way down. A significantly larger number of ships passed through the strait yesterday. I think we're going to have an agreement where Iran will stop harassing ships in the strait, possibly when the U.S. de-escalates and with the presence of naval assets from allied nations. But I think we're going to see the strait cleared very soon.
No, Mr. Pete Hegseth also said that in the upcoming days it will be decisive. We'll get to know a lot more about the developments that will take place in terms of Iran hitting back or Iran retaliating. What do you anticipate will happen? Do you see the Iranian regime agreeing to negotiate or even more aggressive when it comes to the US-Israel offensive?
I believe there's an intensive operation right now to suppress threats to the strait, intensive airstrikes around the shores of the Strait of Hormuz and other areas where missiles are being fired. I think that's the intensive phase of the operation right now. But I also believe there are elements within the Iranian government who want to negotiate. The problem is the government is highly fragmented, and the U.S. is faced with the challenge that although we may find someone to negotiate with, there may be elements of the government, such as the Revolutionary Guard, who will not accept a peace deal. So there may be some rough times ahead.
You're saying there may be rough times ahead, although Donald Trump claims that the talks that have happened so far are constructive and in-depth. Now, since you said you believe Donald Trump may announce victory, purely just in terms of outcomes, even if, let's say, he announces victory and if the hostilities were to end today, who would have won and who would end with an upper hand, an edge?
Now, it is my assessment he's going to announce an end of the war. There are other experts who think he's going to announce that the U.S. is going to send in ground troops. I don't think he's going to do that. But I think right now it's clear that this was a significant win for the United States and Israel because, I mean, Iran has been struck with over 11,000 airstrikes. Its power projection capabilities are way down. It can't make nuclear missiles. It can't nuclear weapons. It can't make missiles. I think that this has made Iran a significantly lesser threat to regional and global security, and that is a big win for the United States.
All right, so two big takeaways. One, you're saying that Donald Trump may announce victory. Two, you're also saying that according to you, there'll be no ground invasion. And you say that Iran is a lesser threat now, but Iran is not showing any signs of backing down. Now, do you think Iran has the capability to sustain a prolonged war?
I don't. I might add that it's not clear whether Iran has no capability of backing down. We know there's public statements that they're not going to back down, they're not going to negotiate, but we also know from many press sources that they are negotiating. I think the Iranian officials lie all the time publicly, perhaps for public consumption within Iran, but clearly there is a diplomatic process underway. And I hope it's successful because I don't want the people of Iran to suffer, and I want to give them the opportunity to overthrow this murderous regime.
Now, you said that the leadership in Iran is fragmented. You also spoke about the role of the IRGC. Given the regime's continued grip on power through the IRGC and its public vows to persist, what is the timeline that you see for a meaningful internal erosion or a political transformation to take place?
I don't think it's going to be a quick transition. I think it's going to be a number of months if the Iranian people are going to rise up and overthrow this government. It's going to take time. It took over a year for the revolution that overthrew the Shah in the late 1970s. What this process will be, I don't know, but I believe that the U.S. and Israel are doing everything they can to strengthen the ability of the Iranian people to pull this off.
Would you say that America has lost more than it has gained? And I ask that purely from the point of view of deterioration of relationship between the Trump administration and the European allies and how this might affect NATO.
Well, President Trump is clearly very frustrated that NATO nations were not completely involved in this operation and has denied the U.S. access to many of its military bases in European states for this operation. It's really too bad because Iran has been an enormous threat to Europe. We now know it has missiles that could probably hit Paris and London. It has sent assassination squads into Europe to kill dissidents. You know, getting rid of this regime is in Europe's interest, and I wish that they had honored their commitment to us to fully support this operation against Iran.
Mr. Fred Fleitz, Iran's deadline to attack American companies has ended. And if it does go after American companies, will it force an American climb down, or will this prompt a stronger response?
You know, you mentioned that earlier before the program. I wasn't aware of that threat by Iran. Iranian officials make so many threats, I sort of ignore them. It's almost like, well, now you've made us really mad. Now we're going to really attack you. Iran's been hit with 11,000 airstrikes. What new threat are we going to hear tomorrow? It is in the interests of whoever's running Iran to make a deal to end this war and to stop issuing idle threats.
So you're saying it's in interest of Iran to make a deal with the United States of America. My question is Israel on board with whatever Donald Trump plans to do next, even if he were to announce victory and an end to the combat?
The relationship between Netanyahu and Trump has been very close cooperation. But there's been differences. There's differences among friends, whether it's in government or personal relationships. If Israel's going to strike a different approach, I don't know. But I think Israel will be completely on board.
Let me also ask you this before I let you go. Is Donald Trump looking for an exit, and a hasty one, because of internal backlash? Is this because of dwindling popularity and, most importantly, the rising cost of war?
Well, President Trump said this would be a 4 to 6 week campaign. We're now at day 32, so he's on track to do what he promised. But I agree with you. There is significant opposition to the war by independents and by Democrats. Democrats overwhelmingly reject the war. He has strong support from his Republican MAGA supporters, but that support will be there as long as it's not a long engagement. Trump promised not to get us involved in endless wars or quagmires. And I think he's moving to keep that promise.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing with us your perspective. Thank you for giving us your time.
Good to be here.